Some brand new developments in the battle against illegal immigration as a new bill aims to give Border Patrol agents more powerful tools. It would allow them to bypass 36 environmental laws involving millions of acres of federal land along the Canadian and Mexican borders. Right now, Border Patrol agents cannot put up fences or set up surveillance equipment in national parks and forests within 100 miles of the border. They can't even use planes or cars to patrol those areas. And in one spot, Border Patrol agents were told they could not construct watchtowers if there's even one endangered antelope in the area. Congressman Rob Bishop, a Republican from Utah, is the chief sponsor of the new bill. What, you see it as common sense legislation, Congressman?
Definitely. You know, the Border Patrol does a great job where they're allowed to work, and that's on private property. It's only on public property that we don't allow the Border Patrol to do their jobs, and that's counterintuitive at best.
Congressman Edward Markey is a liberal Democrat from Massachusetts. He's on the the National Resources Committee. He says your plan is short-sighted and just nonsense. Your response?
Well, quite frankly, we have a problem on public property, which has now been on the southern border, basically ceded to drug cartels. We have an amazing opportunity for the bad guys to come into this country, and we have also the opportunity for terrorists to come into this country because we limit what the Border Patrol can do. We don't need more Border Patrol agents. We need to give them the access to do their routine patrolling, and the only place we stop that is on public property. I want to give them the same rights on public property that they already have on private property.
Well, you say they are limited. In what way? What do you mean?
It simply means if you come to an area that is considered a wilderness category or an endangered species or a conservation habitat, the Border Patrol must stop and do anything else on a patrol basis on foot. If they're in hot pursuit, they might be able, if they have a decent land manager working with them, to continue on in some kind of hot pursuit. But they are limited on what they can do on foot. They are limited on what they can do by transportation. They're limited on where they can put tracking devices. Only on public property, and that once again makes no sense at all. I don't know why we want to tie our hands against bad guys trying to come into this country on public property when we don't do those same kind of restrictions on private property.
You mentioned, or we mentioned in the lead-in, the antelope that is also at the center of some of the controversy here. If you want to build a watchtower, you can't do it if there are antelope nearby?
Well, the rule right now on which they have to operate is if they encounter one of those pronghorns, they have to back up. You can only back up, and you can't go more than 25 miles an hour in doing it until the animal has voluntarily left the area, which it's a silly rule.
So even if you're chasing a drug suspect and there's an antelope that comes between you and the suspect, you got to give way to the antelope?
Actually, that's a gray area. If you're in hot pursuit, you might be able to do it. However, if you have too many bad marks against you by the land manager who protest what the Border Patrol does, you endanger your career. A lot of the Border Patrol will take the safer route, which is not helpful to the American public.
I mentioned the opposition of Congressman Markey earlier. What do you think the chances are of getting this legislation passed?
Look, I hope it's a no-brainer. It's the right thing to do. The House already voted on similar language that was much broader and less specific a couple of years ago, and it passed overwhelmingly the House. The Senate has voice voted the same concepts a couple of times. So once it's on the floor, I don't think you can argue against the logic of what we're trying to do. The reason we have specifically listed the bills is basically the Interior Department said if you don't list specifically what can be waived for the Border Patrol to do their patrolling, we won't accept it. So we listed what has historically been listed when we had to build a fence. Those were the same laws that were allowed to be suspended for the purpose of building the border fence.